Hi everyone, Daniel Linder here. For those of you I haven't met, I'm a co-founder of the Global Innovation Ventures Forum, otherwise known as GIF. Laura and I started GIF a little over a year ago, shortly after our MIT boot camp in Cambridge, with the goal of keeping that momentum going for founders around the world. We meet virtually once or twice a year to learn from each other by discussing what's most topical in our ventures. Earlier this month, we completed our second summit and had a really candid 90-minute conversation about artificial intelligence, how we're using it as founders, and the opportunities and challenges we're navigating in this era of technological convergence. Before I jump in, just briefly, this perspective comes from three roles I'm currently operating across: as an educator, an impact investor, and a co-founder and board member. I'll leave it at that and get into the substance. At the two GIF summits held in 2025, our community members had an interest in learning more about governance. So, in response, I thought I would share some of my work in this space with the community to help people position themselves for 2026. The big mental shift I want you to consider is that if you're watching this, you're probably a board seat creator, and you may not even realize it yet. So, why is that a big deal? Because in your venture, as a board seat creator, you shape who decides, by what authority, and with what consequences. The key to understand this responsibility of being a board seat creator is knowing how to use it. The actual practice of Boardcraft takes time to develop. You need to constantly get your reps in, like exercising or going to the gym or any other discipline, so that when you're in the boardroom making the real decisions, it's just second nature. In practice, I frame this around what I call the AXM Model, which is a simple idea that every venture moves through three key inflection points or phase shifts, and each one is a different type of liquidity event: anchor, expand, and mark to market. When these different types of liquidity events happen, governance is the glue that makes sure they happen in a way that ensures the venture remains healthy. Conversely, there are many examples of bad governance, and it's important to remember what governance is not. It's not management, it's not vanity, and it's not one size fits all. The reality is, major changes happen to every organization, whether you're prepared or not. And again, my focus is on growth-oriented ventures, so I've framed this around strategic inflection points as liquidity events. I like to think of governance as how you arrive at clarity in your strategy. In many ways, at its best, boards are similar to the classroom where inquiry and debate are healthy, which leads to collaboration and sharing resources to reach shared goals. Again, your ability to influence, provide clarity, align stakeholders, and justify your decisions is critical when we think about the venture development lifecycle as a series of different liquidity events. Before we apply this to a venture example, there's one thing to keep in mind. Effective corporate governance starts with authentic self-governance. Aligning values, judgment, and action as an individual is critical to effective boardcraft. Let me share an example from my practice in sustainable real estate development where governance is key. To build new or refit an existing building to a certified high-performance standard comes with a premium cost up front, but the trade-off is reduced energy consumption, anywhere from 1/3 to upwards of 80% less energy usage than a non-commissioned building. When buildings are developed or redeveloped, greenhouse gas emission profiles are effectively locked in for decades. This is known as capital stock lock-in. Today, less than 2% of the existing building stock is upgraded annually. This is why it's more important than ever that new and retrofit buildings are commissioned to a sustainability standard in order to lock in a lower energy use profile today. Buildings are just one tangible example of how lock-in occurs. In any venture, early decisions shape future states long before outcomes are visible. Once enough time, capital, and resources are invested, those choices become hard to unwind later. In sustainable real estate, developers often need to create blended capital stacks like the one shown here. This decreases the weighted average cost of capital and makes projects financially feasible. This scenario is exactly where governance matters. Aligning diverse investors, protecting the mission, and supporting near-term action with long-term decision-making to create measurable outcomes, balancing innovation and risk management. The same model can be applied to corporate governance. Using a climate systems modeling tool like En-ROADS shown here, these conversations become less abstract and help bring together blended capital through governance. For example, in my work with my venture Symbol, I can demonstrate as shown here how our work in this sector can materially contribute to staying near a 2-degree pathway and mitigating global temperature increases and socioeconomic instability. This is where tools like En-ROADS become useful, not to make decisions for us, but to test whether our governance assumptions actually hold over time. When you're working with broad audiences, as might be the case with the boards you design for your venture, clarity of communication is critical, and sharing a simple diagram of the intuition behind your strategy can also work. For my venture symbol, this diagram works well to communicate core outcomes we can achieve through our organization. In my example of sustainable real estate as a form of social enterprise and impact investing, where blended capital is often used, what brings all of these actors together is alignment, not only around shared values, but around measurable outcomes. I'm using metrics here in the strategic sense, what outcomes we're measuring, and indicators as the specific signals we use to track progress. Governance provides the guidance and oversight to keep that alignment intact over time. Hence, governance is the glue. As we wrap up, I'd suggest you design your venture's board to attract blended capital. Don't wait for scale or crisis, but rather position your venture for multiple liquidity events across the 3 phases of anchor, expansion, and mark-to-market. It's never too early to design in versus around governance. Practically speaking, and using the AXM model, it's probably best to start working with someone on your board design when you've reached about an 85 to 90% confidence level across stages 1 through 3. At that point, you've done primary market research, you've completed and refined many versions of the disciplined entrepreneurship canvas, and you've identified product market fit and revenue to anchor your venture at a market-based hurdle rate. As I mentioned earlier, effective corporate governance starts with work you need to do on yourself. Balancing your EQ and IQ and understanding your Myers-Briggs type indicator are great places to start, along with checking out these communities which both offer many resources to enhance your board readiness. So remember, governance is the glue. Designed with intention, it helps you shape and hold early decisions in ways that are accretive to your venture's growth and the measurable outcomes investors and stakeholders care about. That wraps up my talk about Boardcraft for growth. I hope that was helpful. If you're an MIT Bootcamp alum, we hope you can join our next virtual event in 2026. In the meantime, please follow our community page on LinkedIn for details or send us a DM. Thanks for watching. Have a safe and restful holiday season.